Hey guys, I'm Megan.
And I'm Stephanie, and we are
Barn Besties
with
Farm Fresh advice
for you. So we are here to impart the knowledge that we have learned over the years of building and running barns so that you guys don't have to have the problems and the misery and the mistakes that we made. Hope you enjoy our videos. Make sure you hit the subscribe button, right?
Right, and we hope to save you time and money on your new adventures.
Absolutely. Hey guys, I'm Stephanie and this is
Megan.
And we are Barn
Besties
with
Farm Fresh advice.
So today we thought we'd sit down. We're on my farm sitting under our big giant oak tree. It's a beautiful day. We thought we'd tell you a little bit about ourselves and how we came to be Barn Besties. A little bit about our backgrounds. Obviously we're horse women. And just let you guys know why we're making this channel, things like that, right?
Yeah.
Just a little bit about ourselves. So, again, my name's Stephanie. I have, for the most part, lived in Wisconsin all my life, with a few times where I moved away a little bit here and there, but was a horse crazy girl. Drove my parents completely nuts.
Thought you'd outgrow it?
Yeah, they were praying I would outgrow it. So. When I hit what we call middle school when I was a kid, which was 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, there was a program where a barn that was like a city or two away, they brought in a school bus after school, and you could ride the bus after school up to their farm and take riding lessons.
Ooh.
And then they would bring the all of us kids back, in the evening, and the parents would pick us up. And so funny, I don't remember the details of being dropped off, but I do remember being very excited every day. It was once a week.
Aww.
And I remember being very excited on those weeks. And it was a short program. I think it was they only did it for 6 or 8 weeks. And that was when it was school related. But then they had a weekend program where the bus would go to 2 different stops at 2 different malls, like shopping malls. And they would pick up kids, and you would go for the entire day on Saturday, and you could take riding lessons and be at the barn. It was kind of like a day camp. And I remember it was, when I started, Megan, it was $8.
Wow.
It was $8 when I started, and that's how long ago this was. So I remember as it went up to from $8 to $9 to $10, because I spent several years there, but honestly, you guys, I think my parents were like, this is the best $10 we've ever spent in our lives, because they got rid of me for an entire weekend day. I think the bus picked up at 9 a.m. and I think our drop off was 5 or 5:30 at night.
Wow.
So we were pretty much gone the entire day.
Wow.
And the parents had to send you, obviously, with your riding money to take your lesson. They had a snack, a little snack thing you could buy, candy bars and snacks. They had a soda machine. Obviously your parents had to pack your lunch or whatever, or have you pack your lunch and, send you with money for soda or something. But, I got away for the whole day. And it was a great experience. I think I did it all of my middle school.
How cool.
It was great. So, not only were you taking riding lessons, but they took you out in the barn and taught you stuff about horse husbandry. They made us, we were rampant free labor. We learned how to move hay and feed and pick horses' hooves, and we learned all about the saddle parts, different saddle parts. So we learned about the different horse anatomy parts. We learned how to saddle and bridle, and just farm life. We learned about, fixing fence and anything we were willing to do, they'd take you out and do it. In the wintertime, it was very cold. Mm-hmm. I remember that it was not a heated lounge. They just had a wood-burning stove. Can you imagine this? A wood-burning stove in a barn?
No.
They did. They had a wood-burning stove, but it was still cold. It was cold. We pretty much froze. So you were constantly running around just to keep warm.
Right.
But you're a kid, you're always running around.
Yeah, and you're always warmer. I was warmer as a child.
Yeah, so then I morphed from that into, friends I made there had horses, and they invited me to their barns. And then I moved into leasing horses.
Ooh.
Yep, and I babysat all year round to save up enough money to afford 4 months of leasing a horse in the summer.
Ooh.
And then we would go to little open shows, and they got into 4-H and all that. And I really learned fiscal responsibility to save my pennies so I could have my horse stuff. And then eventually we bought horses and stuff. So that was my childhood. What about you? What was your childhood like? When did you become a horse nut?
2 years old. We went out to California, and I have half sisters, and we went to our family ranch, and they put me on a horse, and that's all I ever talk about. Horse, 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 horse. My parents I did soccer for a season, and I was like horse, horse, horse. And down the road there was a barn we stopped in and started taking lessons at the age of 8.
Nice.
And then there was 2 options. There was the Western trainer, or there was the dressage trainer. And so we went with the dressage trainer, and that's all I've ever stuck with.
So maybe if you would have gone with the Western trainer,
I'd
you'd
be a
be
Western trainer.
This world famous Western trainer.
Maybe. But instead we went the dressage route, and the barn we were at, we started like, I don't know, open shows, English style riding, and then
I did that too as a kid. Open shows, hunt seat shows.
Yep.
They had Western saddle seat and hunt seat classes. They had halter and showmanship.
Yep.
I don't even remember. Eventually, I think they started adding trail classes in, but I think it was like all morning was like showmanship and hunt like halter horse stuff.
Yep.
And then it just went into, sometimes it was actual hunt seat and saddle seat. Sometimes it was English or Western.
Yep, we had that open.
So your
English,
saddle
pleasure.
seat people would be riding against your hunt seat saddle people. Right?
Yeah, I did that for a year, and then the barn was hit by a tornado, and so we decided to build our own barn. So I was fortunate enough at 8, 9, my parents built a barn. It was 3 stalls, a tiny little indoor riding arena. And
you're lucky they built you a riding arena.
Oh yeah, I'm very, very, no complaints. And my dad got a shop, and they said,
oh, that was why.
Yeah, that was why. But they wanted to teach me responsibility. So instead of having a cat, I had horses. So every morning and night I had to get up, feed the horses. We boarded for maybe 2 years. People didn't pay. It was just a racket. So we closed it off, and then started breeding. Actually, after 3 foals, decided breeding wasn't for us. And so then
and this was all when you were a kid.
Yeah. So until I was 19, they were hoping, well, to 18 I graduated. I had a farm that I was managing, and and then at 18, they wanted me to go to college, become a doctor or a lawyer. I was so miserable, and luckily for me, I went to a college that had my trainer was just down the road, so I could still take lessons. It was the only thing that was my saving grace, and I said, this is terrible, I don't want to do it. And I wrote up a business plan, started my business, and I started building on their facility.
You're zooming through your whole life right now.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's what happened.
So when I was in high school, so eventually, like, I was leasing horses. Eventually that horse became for sale. My parents bought me that horse. I stayed at that barn for a little while, and then I found another barn. It was actually farther away, but it had an indoor. The barn that I was at didn't really have an indoor arena, so there wasn't a lot we could do in the winter time. So I moved to this barn, and it wasn't a big indoor. It was probably a 60 by 100, maybe 120.
Yeah, about that.
I don't even think it was 120. I think it was probably like 60 by 100. But it was a large circle, and you could actually ride inside. Didn't have great footing, but it was still covered in the arena. You could ride a big circle in the wintertime. And he was a quarter horse breeder. And he was, I was like a teen. I got my driver's license, so I was able to drive out. I had this little like Honda moped scooter thing that I sometimes would ride out, and it was probably like 8-10 miles out into the country. I'd like me on my little scooter that would go like 25 miles an hour. And then eventually I was able to get, have a car to go out and back and forth. And I loved it. I got to interact with the stallions, the mares, the foals, see how his breeding thing worked. Learned a lot about, the quarter horses. Wasn't my thing. When I was a kid, I was into saddlebreds only because the place where I was riding raised saddlebreds.
Oh,
so once
wow.
again, there was that influence of, they had like 1 or 2 foals a year. I think they tried to have like 1 or 2 foals a year that, the kids would show and they would raise up. And at that first barn, they did saddle seat. And that really actually never really interested me. It's surprising because it was a huge influence, but I love the saddlebred, American saddlebred, really great family horses. But then, so I went to this other farm and, got to meet him, obviously helped him out here and there. And his girlfriend was a vet student at the University of Wisconsin at Madison. They had just opened a vet school within the last 10 years or whatever it was. And so I got a lot of influence there. I learned about pastures, fencing, breeding, the stallions, the mares. Their outdoor arena was just dirt enclosed. It was like a dirt patch that had a railing around it or whatever. And, it was grass in the middle and, terrible footing, but what did I know? Tons of really amazing trails out there. You could trail ride for hours. It was amazing. And, I was really sad when that farm got sold recently, probably in the last 15 years, but it is part of the Ice Age Trail. It was super hilly. My horse lived out on like 100-acre pasture when I was there. It was amazing. And, they would come up, they had, their automatic water was attached to the barn, and there was an overhang for them to get out of the weather. Other than that, they were out in like 100+ acres. I would trail ride through the pastures because it was so huge. Wow. You could and it was rolling hills and everything. It was really nice. So when I ended high school and went into college, I started as a working student. I think it was probably the summer between my freshman and my sophomore year, and that was it was an eventing barn. So I had my horse at this farm that was only like 8 miles or so from where I lived, and then I was a working student at this farm that was probably 25 miles away. It was about a 30-minute drive at the time to get there. And she was an eventer, so they did the dressage, they did the cross country and stadium jumping. So we've talked about that in another video as well, but I started getting that, and it was really funny because for whatever reason, I think it was all the horse magazines that we used to get, because everything was magazines. I had already fallen in love with the idea of dressage. I just didn't notice. I didn't know it yet. But I had, wanted to do the fancy, sidestepping through the arena and all that, which is, either legular or half-ass. It was ballet on horseback, and I think that really interested me. But so eventually, I ended up, after it was my second or third year of summer working student, I did move my horse up to that farm, and it was there permanently. But that's kind of how I got really my crazy footing. So I learned a lot as a kid in those barns. You learned from where I started taking lessons after school and middle school, learned a lot. And then, years later, I ended up, that place where I was a working student, I ended up managing that barn for a while. I had a year off of school between my 4th and 5th year of college. I needed to take a break, needed to make some money, took a year off, and then went back to school to just finish. But I managed the barn, so that was my first barn managing experience. And I mean, you had to learn how to drive the tractor and manure spreader. You had to learn how to maintenance the tractor and the manure spreader. You had to know how to fix fences, obviously clean stall, all that horse husbandry, dealing with the vet and the farrier and emergencies and anything and everything. Frozen water in the winter, dragging hoses, a water heater in the, in the water tanks in the winter, and figuring out that whole situation. It was really a robust way of learning how to do things, which gave me a really great foundation when it was time to manage an even bigger barn and then eventually build our farm. Awesome. So you guys had your farm from a young age, so your dad guided you through a lot of stuff, right?
Nope.
Well, but you guys built your stalls together, you said.
Well, yeah, my dad and I built the stalls together, but it was my job to run the farm. Okay. Like they actually, so we had a farm before that, but it was a Christmas tree farm. So I had to manage that and sell Christmas trees. So I had saved a lot of money from working for them. And so they actually gave me a checkbook, and I had to build a business at that young age.
Wow.
And even at that age, I was calling the feed store, calling for grain, calling for shavings, arranging hay. So I actually did.
How old were you when you were doing all that?
Yeah, 9, 10, all the way to 18. So that was my childhood.
The rest of your life.
The rest of my life. I know.
Right to right now, even. Yeah.
Yeah, I tried to leave a couple of times. I had a couple of working student positions. One was in California, and that was great because it was learning how to ride.
We talked about that in our working student videos.
Yep.
If you guys haven't seen that, check that out. It's a 2-part video, 2 videos. One of them's about 20 minutes. The other one, I believe, is about a half hour. Great video. We both very briefly talk about our working students, and then we actually interview one of Megan's working students. So make sure you check that video out.
So that is my experience. Having my barn, I did have a head trainer. I had a trainer that would come in, and actually 4 times a week she would come to our facility and teach myself, my mumsy, lessons. And then I had my 2 working student positions. The other was in California, California, and then the second one was Illinois, at Temple Farms for about 4 years. In the summers, during the school year, I took lessons and was a part of the performances, also support for the performances, and then just being in training. And my dad developed actually a software for their breeding program, which was great. So just to be a part of more of the management side.
So yeah, I mean, I feel like my whole foundation as a child in my young, college years really set me up. Eventually, after college, I worked for about 3 to 3.5 years. My first job out of college, which honestly, I'm so happy I took this job, was at an implement dealership, a farm implement dealership. I was in the service department. Let me tell you, I paid attention to everything. I learned and sucked up as much information as I could about any kind of farm implement that came through, because I wanted to know how you operate these, what are the things that you need, how to fix things, because I always wanted a farm. And I'm like, the more I know, what I can do and what I need to know, I know so much about tractors, manure spreaders, bobcat or skid loaders as they're called. I learned as much as I could. And honestly, at the time, I was still boarding at the place that I had previously managed. I had my horse there, and I was able to help them with their tractor and manure spreader management and things. When things broke, I handled it through where I was working. It was really interesting, and it was so helpful. I look at all that information. I just paid rapt attention, because I was like, people broke stuff. Okay, what happened? How did you break it? Okay, and what are we doing to fix it? And you know what I mean? So that was really good. Am I a mechanic? No, I never will be. But do I have an idea of what when something breaks, what needs to be greased, whatever? Yeah, I think it gave me a good foundation. Not only that, but when I need something fixed, I can actually talk the talk with them and have they're not going to look at me like just this person who has no clue.
Well, they do that for me.
I mean, so I was really grateful for that.
Yeah, and I think that's smart. Whereas I, on the other hand, I married my hayman. So I married into a dairy farming family, and so I am not handy. Not even a little handy. My dad tried to educate me. We were in the shop all the time. I'm a disaster.
Megan, this is a hammer.
Yeah, so
I've seen you swing a hammer.
I prefer the sledgehammer.
You can swing a hammer. I've seen her swing a hammer. She can nail things better than most women can. So
I can drive.
Give yourself some credit.
What I did that's a little different is I call it a man list. And I have lots of friends who have lots of really great skills. Yeah. And I have a lot of people that I call, and which is great because
friends and neighbors.
It's really important to have neighbors and a whole community like us.
Yeah. It takes a village.
Yeah, because if I break something, I'm sick, if I'm injured, I can call Steph and like, Steph, I need help. And she's like, yeah, no problem. And vice versa. I think it's really, it's lacking, I think, a little bit in the horse community, but I definitely learned about it through the dairy community. And I learned a lot. I learned how to drive a bobcat. I learned how to drive a tractor, and I just did it.
Back a manure spreader, which lead to backing a horse trailer.
Yeah. So
driving a truck and trailer from driving a tractor and a manure spreader.
So it was very helpful to be a part of a dairy community, because they're like, get in, drive around. And I'm like, but I don't know how. And they're like, you'll learn. Sink or swim, babe.
That's how I learned how to drive a tractor.
So it was the same.
It is get on and drive and don't hit anything.
Yeah. So I got to learn how to cut hay, bale hay, stack hay, all the things. And we actually combined our 2 farms while we were married. And then we got divorced, and so then I was on my own. So I developed a really tight-knit community. Thank God for all of them. Because like I said, I'm not handy. I can train a horse. I can drive things. But I don't always know the terminology. I can change the oil in my Farmall B, but that's pretty simple.
Yeah, that is very simple. Because I drove a Farmall as well. So after I worked in, like I said, it was about 3.5 years working in this implement dealership. I got recruited out of there to go run a farm down in, it was still Wisconsin, but it was on the state line. It was Greater Chicagoland, we always called it. And I did that for about 2.5 years. That was a large boarding facility. It was a 40-acre farm. There was approximately, I believe, 40-ish stalls on the barn. So, and when I came in there, it was nearly full, and it became full. So running a big working farm, we had a staff of myself and 3 others, 3 guys, because people would, have days off or whatever. But it was running the feeding program, like you said, ordering the hay, managing the staff, managing and dealing with the clientele, and just all the things that go along with running a big 40-acre farm in the big bustling Greater Chicagoland boarding scene, which is wild. There's a ton of horse people in that area. There's hundreds of barns, and it's just wild. And I dabbled a little in breeding there. We didn't do horse shows. We did clinics. We did mare and foal inspections, things like that. But other than that, there were 3 outdoor arenas, the indoor arena, and then all the turnouts and the fencing. The person I worked for, they had just bought the farm. The fencing was old and run down from the previous owner. We worked on replacing a lot of that, fixing a lot of turnouts were in such bad condition that they were starting to use outdoor arenas as turnouts, which was ruining the arenas. We were getting that fixed. There was mowing and maintenance. When I moved in there, they had captive deer that I was taking care of. So they had a couple of acres with deer. Wow. It was just a lot. But I learned a ton. And everything that I had learned in my childhood, all the way up through college, through the implement dealership job, absolutely set me up for success in working at that place. We also, at the implement dealership, were commercial lawn care repair. We sold and maintenance commercial lawn care. So as far as all the lawn care that we needed to deal with on this 40-acre farm, I knew a ton about all the mowers and the equipment there, and was able to handle dealing with getting that stuff fixed and what I needed. And so I think it was honestly a really broad background. And the reason I got that job was because I had managed previously that other the farm where I had managed the farm where I had started as a working student, so I had that experience already, and it was smaller, but all that set me up. All of that in my early years through my, I'll say maybe through 25ish. No, I think my late 20s actually set me up for when my family bought our family farm. And when we bought this family farm, the only thing that was here was an old dairy farm. It had, the garage had been the dairy. It had a shop that was like half shop, half. He used it as storage. I turned that into a foaling area. We built a barn. I built an arena. I built all the pastures. So all those steps and all that stuff learned has gotten me to where I am now, which is why all those life experiences, and I'm old, but I ain't that old, is why I feel like it's time to give back
And share
what we have learned in doing all this in our lives to help you guys, because I feel very blessed to have had the upbringing and meet the people. You just talked about it.
Yep.
The community, the neighbors, the people you all, to be able to rely on them. I learned a lot. When I was working at that big boarding facility with 40 acres, I've talked about this. We have a video where we're talking about building arenas, and we talk about footing and the base and all that. There was a guy down there, we called him the footing man, the arena man, the arena guru, or the arena god. Whenever he was talking about things, I shut up and listened, because I knew that was going to be very valuable information for me to take when I built my own farm. And so we're sharing our life experiences with you guys, because we've made a lot of mistakes along the way. A lot of mistakes, which cost us time, money. Megan, we did a video talking about Megan building her newest indoor arena and the problems and struggles she had with that. Sorry guys, the birds, we have a lot of birds around us right now.
We're out in nature.
Just to give you guys ideas of things you need to consider, things, problems that may arise that you need to plan ahead for, and just show you guys mistakes we've made, so that you don't make those mistakes as well.
And the good and the bad, because with my facility, we started with 3 stalls, and then had 5, and then had 11, and this last expansion, we now have 24. And just to be able to share the evolutions, right? Because it also, I used to host a lot of clinics. I don't do that right now. And then we used to be mainly training horses, and then we became a riding school. I used to sell horses, and then 2008 there was no selling horses, and now I'm selling horses again. So
we weathered the 2007-2008 financial crisis.
And so just sharing all of that knowledge, whether it's expanding, sharing about our community and our history.
And just trying to help you guys as maybe you're not going to build the type of farm that we did. Maybe you're going to be bigger. Maybe you're going to be smaller. Maybe you're going to be commercial. Maybe you're not going to be commercial. We're just going to give you ideas. So we hope you guys like this channel. We've got our YouTube channel. We've got our Patreon. You're going to find us on all our social medias. So hope you guys like this. What else do we want to talk about today? I think it's pretty broad.
I think it's broad, and I think I want to emphasize we're for everybody. We want to build a community of sharing, whether it's personal, it's for breeders, as Stephanie said, professionals, and we'll
maybe
just share.
Maybe you've just got kids that have ponies in the backyard. Maybe you have donkeys. We've got a friend who's got the most adorable little mini donkeys, and both of us, we both want to steal them because they're so adorable.
They are cute, but only horses for me. You can steal them. But no, we want to be for everyone and help everyone the best we can.
So, if you got topics or something you want us to cover, we've got a long list of topics we're going to be covering over the next years and years, and we'll revisit topics over and over because things change. But we also hope to go out into the community, our community of friends and colleagues, and maybe share their stories and pieces and parts of their facilities as other examples. I think it's going to be a lot of fun doing that.
I think it's going to be a blast. Share your comments and any topics you want us to talk about. We will love to delve into them.
Absolutely. So make sure you hit the subscribe button. Don't forget. And if you're here on YouTube, click the bell for notifications. Leave us comments down below. Let us know what questions you have. But we're super excited for this and appreciate you guys so much following us on this journey. And like I said, I don't think we got inflated egos, which I think we'll be accused of. We honestly just want to help. We really do, because I think we're both really grateful for the help that we got from the community as we learned and did our journeys so far, and continue to get help. You've been helping me. I've been helping you. It takes a village.
It takes a village.
So thanks everybody. Appreciate your time, and we will see you
at the next video.
On our next video. Yay! Bye everybody.